I see that it's 3 o'clock. So I'd like to convene this meeting of the Engineering Committee for the San Lorenzo Valley Water District for April 16th, 2025. Garrett, will you take roll
Chairperson Mark Smalley,
here?
Director Bob Foltz,
Here.
Committee Member Francis Cleveland, here. Committee Member Bill Grace,
Here.
Committee Member Tim Monde.
Randy, I'm my great uncle.
Okay, any changes to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Oral communications, I see nobody here from the public in attendance and nobody online from the public. So I'd like to proceed to new business. First, we have the Lion Access Road slide repairs. As Ken was commenting earlier, there was an extensive amount of information attached to this item. So in the 60-second nutshell, Garrett, can you describe for us sort of the status of this and why this happened in 2017? It's now 8 years after that, and what we either have done or, more importantly, probably what we haven't done with this. So
Sure. So the district has an active landslide on the access road to the Lion treatment plant and the Lion storage tank and the Little Lion storage tank. This landslide was reactivated in the storms of 2023. Staff has made temporary repairs on top of the active landslide to maintain access. The repairs continue to deteriorate, and we need to have a permanent solution.
okay.
The district, if you read the reports, there appears to be some liability for the district due to this active landslide. There's a large soil mass that could be mobilized into a creek below. On the other side of the creek are homes. Currently, the district is exploring a new access road. Now, there's a couple problems with the new access road. Probably the most obvious is the cost of building a brand new access road. While the cost is approximately half the cost of stabilizing the landslide, it's still a considerable amount of money to the tune of $8 million. Now, the design has not been completed. The civil engineer for the project did not have retaining wall design in their scope of work. So if we're going to move forward with the new access road, there's a $200,000 ask to finish design plans, and that would be for design of retaining walls. I included the plans for the new access road in the memo, in the packet. You can see that there's portions of the access road that have a single retaining wall. There's portions of the access road that have 2 retaining walls. We're proposing to build this access road on a 50% slope going behind Big Steel Tank and going up to the elevation of Little Lion and the Lion Tank. The proposed road has a 20% grade. The Santa Cruz County road standards indicate a 15% max grade. where if you have up to a 20% grade, it can be no longer than 200 feet. And then you're supposed to have turnouts, turnarounds. There's some other compliance issues that we might have issues with if we want to build the new road. And the other thing I would say about the new road, it doesn't address the landslide.
Mhm.
So staff would like to propose that we revert back to repair of the existing access road. And that the district accept some risk with a repair that doesn't address stabilization of the entire soil mass. Staff feels this would be a more cost-effective solution. And therefore, we could actually build a better access for the line treatment plant, since we don't have the money to build, to stabilize the entire landslide or build a new access road. So that's the summary.
Okay, so to summarize costs then, to build the original road, stabilize the slide, 15 million,
Correct.
16 million?
That's the estimate in 2019.
Right. I understand that,
Okay.
but that's the estimate that we had then, 2019. To
Correct.
do this alternate road coming in from a different direction, 8 million.
That's the current estimate.
Without retaining walls, so 8 million plus.
The retaining walls haven't been designed. So
Right.
once we design, they included a price for retaining walls.
Okay,
Once the retaining walls are designed, you can get a better cost estimate.
but you're also then throwing out a third possibility here. Some limited upgrade of the previous road.
Correct.
What do you guesstimate as far as a cost on that?
I would guess it would be on the order of $2 million.
Okay. All right, okay, I wanted to get those rough costs out for the three options that the district has in front of us. Okay, with that then, questions, Bob?
Yes, how much did the soil move in 2023 from where it was in 2017?
I can show you pictures if you're interested.
Well, I don't need the pictures, I just need to know how much it moved.
I don't have a distance that it moved.
3 feet, 10 feet,
Or 18 inches?
or not much at all?
It was not passable with a car after it moved.
Okay.
But it was before that,
Correct.
okay.
And is the landslide area covered now with plastic?
No.
Um,
So right now, what we've done is they've done some rough grading and paved over the unstable soil. So we have access over the actual slide. The other problem is that it's on a slope. So when you lose a lower portion of the slope, it destabilizes the upper portion of the slope. So we have a vertical cut face underneath the paving. So once you get past the slope, you have to drive above the slope. And that is slowly working its way back, undermining the road.
how many homes are at the bottom of the hill on the other side of the creek that would be impacted by a complete landslide of this soil mass?
I don't know the exact number of houses, but they are visible from the access road.
It's in the magnitude of maybe a dozen or so.
Yeah, I think
It's not
that's fair.
really-
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we let Bob?
I feel pressured here.
Okay, well,
No,
how about we can come back to you then?
I
Think
just don't
about
want to interrupt. that's all.
And then, go ahead, Ken.
Only because I don't know. The current road, is that on water district property or is that on county land?
It's on Water District property,
The proposed new road, same thing?
correct?
Okay, so if we were to do the new road, we still have the liability of what the slide might do
Correct.
to those homes down below. So either way, we have that liability.
The liability exists right now and has existed since the Lion treatment plant was built.
No, I just wanted to clarify in my mind that no matter which approach we take, of the three almost, all right, a complete redo, a partial redo, or a new road, we still have that liability. Because
Yes,
no matter what we do to that road, that hill is still unstable. To some degree,
the $15 million solution indicates that it would be stabilized.
that it would stabilize.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But that's 15 million and 6 years ago. Who knows
Yes.
how much it's gonna cost today?
But whether it's 15 and 18 million now or 20 million now, it's well beyond what anything that the district has budgeted
Sure.
for this. So I'll turn it to, since you started, Bill, what other questions?
Well, I mean, that's more money than the district has budgeted and how long, what is the time frame for implementing that repair? If in fact we could come up with the money, which it appears somewhat unlikely.
So, this is a FEMA project. So there is some concern that if we don't move quickly, we could lose our FEMA reimbursement status.
Yeah, I think that's real.
The timeline has to do with when we can prepare bid documents and then go out to bid and then award a contract. So
Did you ever have any idea how long that project would take? Did anybody give you an estimate?
which project?
Well, the complete overhaul, the
The $15 million?
15 plus.
I would expect they could complete that in one summer. Yeah.
Do we still expect FEMA money?
Yeah.
I think
I wouldn't
if
hold
we
my
got
breath.
reimbursed, it would not be on this budget cycle. So we would be extended the money until for maybe 5 years.
Separate topic.
Yeah. Francis?
Yep. Well, do you have any idea what the liability would be if the cost of the liability would be if a slide did occur and at least impacted the houses below? In other words, what is the opposite side of spending the X million dollars?
I don't know what the potential cost would be if there was a large landslide.
So
And
is the estimate from, or is there an estimate from the engineering firms as to the amount of instability? In other words, is this something that really is going to happen over the next few years? Or is this something that might happen 50 years from now?
I think in a geotechnical point of view, it's a very long time period that they consider. And they always protect themselves by telling you the worst case, which has a low probability of occurrence. But we have that in writing, we have it in report, it's been discussed at multiple meetings, so.
I think my question was answered some years ago, but I'm not sure. Do we have liability insurance? Is this not covered because it's an act of God type thing?
I don't know what our insurance would cover if there was a landslide.
It's important if we're paying for it and we have it, and it would be covered, and that has to come into the equation.
Guys, I have two words, Love Creek. Okay, so what I'm concerned about is a landslide. Not just that goes into the creek, I mean, that can be dealt with, but that goes down and inundates the houses. Have they done any modeling on that? Is that a possibility of happening? And the issue we run into here is while the risk may be low, the outcome is so bad that even a low risk is something that you have to deal with. And, you know, that outcome can be anywhere up from destruction of all homes and death from people who get inundated by the landslide, depending on whether or not it's that big. And that's why I had the question earlier. All the, you know, down to something where maybe the creek gets blocked, we, you know, have some environmental fine, but no one's hurt and no structures are damaged. Has Harrow Kucinich put together any models about what that landslide would look like if it failed catastrophically in another 2017 type rain? Because we will get another 2017 type rain.
They quantified the soil mass. So it's, you know, 45 feet deep. And I think it was 290 feet. But let me see, I have it in my memo.
But I'm sure that there's some kind of modeling software out there that would take this mass and in the event of a catastrophic weather event, what it would do.
Well, they look at the stability of the slope when it's saturated with a seismic event. I think that's the worst case. And they check the stability where you want to have it be greater than 1.
No, I get all that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is,
Where would it go?
where would it go?
So
In the event of a saturated seismic event, would it inundate the houses?
it would go into the creek and then it would approach the neighborhood. And the county did a like a landslide debris flow analysis. And you can look at these maps on the county GIS and it identifies this area as a debris flow area.
How about this? Since I haven't looked at this Harrow Kucinich report. As a follow-up before our next meeting, would you go focus on this aspect? Can you at least have a map, shows the homes, shows kind of just an outline of where the slide is now, what the topography, you know, some type of a contour map showing what, you know, what the layout of this is, so that we could see that. And is this Harrow Kucinich report part of the 475 pages that you sent us?
Yeah, both reports are in there.
Okay. Okay, I haven't looked at it this time around. I'll go back and take a look at that also.
The other reason I'm asking is that the people that live in that neighborhood quite rightly would be concerned about dramatic depreciation of their home value,
Sure.
right? Because they're under a threat of potentially losing
Right.
everything
And
and will not be able to rebuild. I guarantee you, should those houses be lost, the county will do what they've done up here and they will shut it down.
and you point out the county's assessment of this. But was that part of, I'm guessing that wasn't part of this agenda packet.
The county's assessment? No, it's not included.
Since you mentioned that, why don't you pull that out for us and share that with the rest of the committee before the next meeting also?
Okay.
I would still like, is it possible for Harrow to put together a model of, use their magic software to show what's gonna happen in this event? I
I know such
$5,000 ask, $10,000 ask, under 30, you don't need to come to the board.
such software definitely exists on a hydrologic level. I don't know if they
Right.
need that kind of stuff to
Yeah.
identify like debris flow. That might be a level of magnitude.
I don't know
More
either.
complex,
But I think it's reasonable to ask Bob's question.
yeah, we should know in the worst case scenario, how affected are the homes? Are they completely wiped out? Or are they?
But
You know,
to ask
have
Bob's
some
question,
monitoring.
could they model this? Model the risk factor of this?
I think they could.
Yeah, and
Because
is there,
this-
is there anything that could be done to mitigate the potential of the slide regardless of what we do with the road. In other words, plant lots of trees or put in some retaining walls or,
I think,
that would at least mitigate it, not solve
not
it.
solve it.
I mean, as part of your suggestion for the $2 million version, Garrett, didn't that include at least some retaining walls along this?
Yeah, so the solution would be to install some retaining walls so we can reestablish the grades of the old road. So the problem that you have is that you have such a thick layer of unstable soil. You want to install the vertical piles into the sound material below. And then, so at the surface, we're only seeing like, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet of a vertical displacement at our road. So you could install lagging, maybe a 10-foot high wall with a tie back into the bedrock below. And then if something bad were to happen and the material would start to move under the wall, then you would have to come back and do repairs by adding more lagging and another horizontal tieback. This is referred to as top-down construction. It's common in, say, San Francisco, if you're gonna put a skyscraper next to an adjacent skyscraper, you have to excavate and install shoring at the same time. So that's top-down construction.
And I think most of that 15 million was not rebuilding the road. It was stabilizing the slide with deep pilings into the bedrock through the slide to stabilize the slide.
So that was the 15 million more or less?
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm guessing the 12 million of it was dedicated to slide mitigation. The other 3 was road reestablishment.
And I believe that the 12 or the 15 million was just for the two secant wall construction. They also came back with another option for 3, which would probably boost the cost up beyond 15.
The estimate in the report is 3 to 4 million per wall, with 3 walls coming in at approximately 15 million.
Yeah.
The drawings that we have, and I've just looked at a few of them, show about 6 or 8 different options. It's like, but none of them show the other side of the creek. How high up are those homes? All right. Are they high enough up that it may not get that far or will get that far? We don't see that in the drawings. We see where the old road is. I assume the lower one is the new proposed alternate location. All right. And then we see the creek, what's it called? Percy Creek, Essie Creek.
I see, yeah.
And then it shows it going up, but we don't know where those homes are. They're off the chart somewhere.
And that's, Ken, that's what I'm asking for Gary to bring back, some kind of a layout drawing that shows Holmes Creek Slide Road with some kind of topography to this, so that he could show us and we could have a sense of.
I suspect.
Yeah, we
that
could
that
create a
exists.
summary map, would have.
I suspect that would exist, and we would just have to put on it where the homes are.
I don't know. Well,
The survey may not have been done on the other side of the creek.
Yeah, no, there's no survey on the other side of the creek. But we can look at the county debris flow map.
yeah, we'll leave it to them to develop that. And if you could pull up whatever you're pointing out as far as county information, county assessment of this also, so that we have that to be able to consider also.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to ask about is from the finance point of view is, has FEMA indicated their willingness to pay 75% of a $15 million slide stabilization project?
So we had originally the FEMA scope of work was to address the existing road. We submitted for a change of scope to build the new proposed road. My understanding is that we have been approved to move forward with the new access road and not address the landslide. And that's the $8.2 million project. And I believe it would be, oh yeah, be 75%.
So here's the thing, guys, if we pass up the opportunity of fixing the landslide now. And we spend $2 million, whatever, and something happens later where we have to fix the landslide, we just lost 75% of our funding. To do that.
That's assuming that we can still get FEMA.
Well,
Right.
you know,
The current
I get that.
is, we believe we can. Yeah, we believe we can.
I mean, this is critical infrastructure. So there's, right, this is something where if we're unable to use that infrastructure up there, this town goes dry quickly.
So it is one of 2 water treatment plants that the district has. I would say that if something bad were to happen to our water treatment plants, we do have wells
Right.
with sufficient capacity to supply the entire system.
Yeah, but not.
But yes, this is a critical facility. In, you know, times when the road was not accessible, they would get ATVs to drive chlorine up there.
Right.
Or, you know, treatment employees would hike up to work to get to the plant.
So we've talked about rebuilding a road.
Mhm.
What if we built a trail that was ATV accessible? I mean, making it as, what? Simple construction is that,
Well, that's the staff proposal, is to simplify the project, make it a
That's
more affordable project.
that's the 2 million.
Just do a simple, reestablish the existing grades of the road that failed
Okay,
and not address
right.
this overall doomsday landslide that we've been alerted
To
to.
Mark's point, I think, you know, you're never gonna get an 18-wheeler up there, I think, no matter what
Nope.
option we
Right,
choose.
right. If
but-
we have catastrophic failure at the plant, it's helicopter something in. Right now, we're getting supplies in.
Mhm.
And
I'll add though that I think getting at least truck access is pretty important. We want to do future projects there. We want, you know, if we're
Yes.
getting a tank recoated, we want the.
okay,
the person to be
Verizon
able to
cell
drive
phone
up to
tower.
the-
right. You can't bring a contractor in on an ATV every day
It's not ideal.
with the supplies that contractor's gonna need to do
Yeah,
a tank upgrade.
and we're looking at
Okay,
the inline filter for the replacement of the Foreman pressure brake.
Yeah.
To be installed behind the line treatment plant.
mhm,
We're looking at the Verizon cell phone tower to be installed adjacent to the little
Okay.
line tank.
so other things that we need,
It seems like at a minimum, we
Truck.
want a 12-foot wide road.
pick up
Minimum.
truck access for, okay. All right. Then, is this, bring it back to the committee with this additional, is that,
Yes, so we're basically on hold right now
Yeah.
until we approve additional funding, either to finish the design of the proposed
yeah,
new road.
Right.
Or we go back and scrap that and say, we're not gonna build this new road, we're gonna fix the existing road.
right,
In which case we would probably need to mobilize a surveyor. And we'd mobilize Haro Kucinich to come out and say, give us design criteria, not for a secant pile wall, but for a tie back soldier pile wall.
okay. But I think, having this, having the committee better informed with the information that I'm asking for at the next meeting, puts this off a month, since we've already been dealing with this for 7 years now, 8 years now. Another month's, in my mind, okay,
Sure.
for us to have a better understanding of first, the true risk, downslope.
Yeah.
If I could add, just, you might want to ask Haro Kucinich about how much they would charge for such a engagement. If it's under 30,000,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. If it's over, you'll need to get a proposal and bring it to the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they can do some
They
type
can.
of modeling.
Yeah.
for this?
Oh, for the mapping?
Some type of modeling to model risk. It's a risk assessment model.
Mm,
So we'd be,
And that was specifically for the debris flow in a kind
yeah,
of worst
for the
case.
debris flow aspect. And how likely is it that it extends beyond the creek? How much of the homes, upslope from the, just that kind of basic.
Okay.
Okay.
One more question, which I may have missed the answer to in the previous
A
note.
little bit.
Have we looked at the cost of replacing the treatment plant with one in a different location? And is that prohibitive?
So that has come up in conversations that for $15 million, maybe we could just build a new treatment plant. I would say that the treatment plant's location is important relative to where the raw water sources are. Because you have to get the raw water to the treatment plant. So the treatment plant is close in proximity to Foreman Creek. Right now, that is the only raw water source that we have for the north system. You have Peavine to the northwest. And you also have Silver Creek on that same bearing. And then to the southwest, you have the 5 Mile pipeline, which includes Clear Creek, Sweetwater. What else? Coal Creek?
So,
So it's essentially centrally located between our raw water sources.
Not practical then, sounds like. Okay.
okay. I think we're good on this item for today then.
Okay.
Because I don't think we can take it any further right now. With our questions. Move on then to the Peavine raw water pipeline project.
Yes. So Peavine raw water pipeline, this is a CZU damage project. Staff, it has proposed that we prioritize this project to reestablish our raw water supply lines. We've completed the hazardous tree removal with the California Conservation Corps. And we've recently completed the topographic survey mapping, which I included in the packet. So we have that done. The next step would be to prepare the engineering plans. Staff is proposing to prepare that in-house. Essentially replacing pine, just like it was built previously in the 1980s. So that's where we're at on that project.
Okay.
Any question?
Yeah, let me first get out costs. You're proposing to do the engineering plans internal. Not a significant cost there. It's the staff time for that. What do you have then as far as an estimate to do the replacement? With the plan that we've heard put out before in front of the board, in front of the.
Yeah, so
Tell us about that.
prior to Rick Rogers leaving, he gave a presentation where he proposed that the district would act as the general contractor, essentially hiring a helicopter deliveries, buying the material, the pipe, the valves. It's possible we could get the California Conservation Corps to help us with the installation, or we could get temporary labor to help us with the installation. We're looking at, no equipment access. And so everything has to be done basically with shovels, with winches that can be transported out in the field on maybe an ATV.
So,
The estimate is $3 to $4 million.
okay. Okay, all right. With that, as the setup, again, Bob?
Is there any value to having the CCC going out there and reestablishing the benches at this point?
Yes, I think any work we can get done on the trail to widen it would be beneficial. There's sections of the trail where there is essentially no bench. The old plans had details where we used an 8-inch treated wood pole as a vertical support to support the pipeline as it traversed areas that were either losing elevation or there's just no bench because it's on a hillside.
Would they create a bench in those areas or would they just leave it as is?
I mean, they would make a bench. We asked for a bench minimum 4 to 6 feet wide.
So is that something that they should be working on this summer, like starting now, since the weather seems to be breaking?
So this summer, they're gonna come out and they're gonna do hazardous tree removal on the 5-mile pipeline. And then after they're done with that, they're gonna possibly move on to trail widening on Peavine.
And when are they going to be done with the hazardous tree removal on the 5-mile?
Probably late summer.
Okay,
So you're not planning on building the Peavine pipe this year then? It would be.
Correct. So we would have to prepare the engineering plans. I'm hopeful we can get those completed this summer and be done by maybe fall. That would inform us on how much material we need. It would inform us of areas of the trail that are would require additional supports to make, because it's unsuitable conditions. We need to identify helicopter landing points and the capability of the winches, how far they can drag this material. And we probably would have a meeting with the Triple Cs and make sure they're on board with our strategy and how to build this thing.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, getting Peavine back on brings another 20% of our capacity for the north system, surface water capacity. So I definitely think it's important to do. I just get done as much of the prep work done this year as possible. Even if it sloughs off a little bit next winter, it won't be, more than likely will not be catastrophic. Unless we get another 2017 rain event.
so to follow on what Bob is suggesting, I would ask the CCC for the cost estimate for them to do this trail reestablishment on Peavine, because I don't think you have that from them yet. Do we?
Correct. We do not have that.
I would ask them for that. They can at least do that now, since they've taken out all the trees on that alignment of Peavine. They know what it's going to take through there, and it's going to take them a month, 2 months to put together a full-on estimate then.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that would help inform next step also. What do they think cost-wise and time-wise for them to reestablish that? So that's something that is a low or no cost activity that gets us additional information to inform, can we move ahead with this then?
Okay.
So, okay, other questions on this? Bill?
No questions.
Francis?
Not at this time, not until I understand more about it.
Okay, well, that's what I wanted to do was have Garrett answer the more questions about this, because to see what we had. This is a pipeline that was HDPE, essentially thick wall plastic. We had it laid on the ground. It burned during the fire. And now we're talking about putting it back in place the way it was before. When I first heard this, shortly after the fire, what was the district thinking? Putting plastic, it made no sense to me at first glance. But after doing a full-on engineering assessment of options and walking part of this line, I fully understand, one, why the district did it the way that it did back in the mid-80s, and why the engineering assessment is concluding, go replace it in kind. And now I fully understand, I supported that. So,
And you'll forgive me for saying I don't,
right,
because I think the
I was
engineering
gonna-
assessment did not cover the questions that I had about it, or suggestions I had about it. There was clearly an
Right.
agenda on the part of Rick, who built it in the first place to restore it back.
Right.
And I think we're doing a disservice to future generations by doing it that way.
Yeah.
In fact, I sent you a email, I believe, a few days ago about one of our special interest groups showing replacing raw water pipeline on a slope with a trench in the picture. You know, not a deep trench, but a trench up against the bank, close enough, deep enough, you could
Yeah.
bring some down, and with the maintenance of that area in a way that we didn't do in the past to keep the vegetation off, so that the fire wouldn't come back, we'd have something that would be protected.
Yeah.
The board chose not to do that. In fact, the board cut off any discussion about that so that I couldn't even bring it up. There we go.
You don't use metal pipe anymore, right? Like you did off of Felton Empire?
So the metal pipe has a problem because it's so heavy. But
So any new pipe we're putting in a roadway would be metal pipe, but if you're snaking
course.
through the mountains,
It's all
it has a lot of
yeah,
downsides.
so yeah, the HDP is somewhat flexible, so you can kind of
No,
hit the
I've
contours a little
seen it
easier.
in actions in a way.
So any further questions on either the aspect of that or what Garrett is?
So how much of it actually melted in the fire?
All of it.
All of it?
Effectively.
So that was,
all
I mean, this was what, 5 miles of it?
It's what is it,
It's closer-
2,700 feet?
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Over 2 miles.
This one has multiple names, am I right?
Eh,
It's called P-Line 5 Mile.
Well, 5 Mile is a different pipeline. This
Oh,
is
okay.
P-Vine. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
had the water treatment plant centrally located, 5 Mile goes towards Brookdale and P-Vine goes towards the golf course.
Okay.
Okay.
And
That-
And then
P-Vine.
there's the cross country, the one that's, it's got another name in the,
So the cross country refers to both of them.
right,
okay.
captures all of it. And P-Vine is about a mile
Well,
and a
because the name keeps changing as we look at documents.
Yeah, that's,
So which one we're
that's
looking
what I'm trying to.
P-Vine is
suss out
about a
here.
mile and a half.
Yeah,
So the cross-country pipeline study was essentially both of them?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and kind of the strategy is we're gonna try and build the easier pipeline first and take lessons learned to build the 5 Mile pipeline later.
So
Burial is not a possibility at all.
Anything's possible. Now, the issue is that you can't get equipment to this location. So in the pictures that Director Foltz sent me, there's an excavator. We actually mobilized a bulldozer and put a road on the side of the mountain between the water treatment plant and Foreman Creek. Now, I think if we tried to get a bulldozer on Ben Lomond Mountain and bulldoze a road in, we would have issues.
So again, none of that was even contemplated. This is a discussion that got cut off by the board and Rick Rogers. There are other ways of being able to do this. Everybody focused on, oh my God, we're gonna bring in excavators and build 14-foot wide roads and all that. That was not what I was talking about.
There are lots of.
Anyway,
photos like
it's all been decided by the board already. It's just my opinion, when the next fire goes through, they're gonna look back on this and go, what the hell were they thinking? But anyway, I will not be alive when that happens, more than likely, but there it is.
So getting an estimate from the CCC.
Yeah.
To have them do this trail widening, which you're saying is going to need to be done. In addition to the engineering plan or engineering plans, the drawings that you're talking about. I strongly feel that we need a project plan. Something that goes through and addresses, if we are the general contractor on this, and in particular, if it's CCC crews that are assisting us, all of the myriad of questions that are, you're pointing out helicopter lifts. Well, how much can a helicopter carry? How many landing sites do you need for that? What preparations need to be done for the landing sites? When, what time of the year are we excluded from bird nesting season? I mean, all of the myriad of things that need to be addressed that you could hand to a knowledgeable crew leader. Somebody that I think if the district does this, we're going to have to hire a crew boss. Somebody that could marshal this effort of what you're posing here is laborers. To say, here's how laborers are going to effectively be able to haul in HDPE pipe. How do you fuse it? Do you have to have certification for fusing? I mean, all of these questions doesn't come out on the set of engineering plans. So
Yeah, so the California Conservation Corps, they'll have a foreman that runs their crew.
right,
We would be responsible for, getting the helicopter to have the HDPE lengths on the trail for when the laborers get there.
right,
The fusion machine also would be brought in via helicopter,
right.
and any other equipment they need to cut and to drag.
Right.
So,
But you're correct in that both the design would have to be more detailed than if you were handing it to Joe Contractor who does pipeline, roadway construction. And we'll need to have more means and methods ready.
We're
to
used
go.
to dealing with a contractor that we can give a set of plans where it's a dig, lay, bury and backfill
Mhm.
pipeline. What you're talking about here is not that.
right.
What you're talking about here is not going to a general contractor and having them be able to implement on the set of drawings. Having the district using CCC laborers, okay, but that's but not without a project plan that goes through all this. So I'm not saying here, I'm saying at some point we're going to need that. Whether you go outside to an outside firm for that assistance, or whether you do that internally, one way or another, all of those questions have got to be thought out, answered and resolved as to here's the plan, here's how we're going to do this.
The good news is that it was done this way in the past, I think is what you're leveraging using CCC. Now, the question is whether or not we're as capable as a society today of doing this kind of thing as they were 40 years ago.
I think
I think we are.
I think we're as capable. I think that there are environmental restrictions or considerations that should be taken now that maybe they thought about then.
Well, yes, we've hyper-regulated ourselves into paralysis. So yes, we
But-
do have to consider.
So we have to consider it. What I'm asking about bird nesting. Well, if we go out there and have disturbances that some locals or some other agency says, wait, time out. In the middle of the project, that's not going to let us get it done. So I just want to,
We did have an environmental review done in this, though.
We did. we did.
We have a consultant who's working with us on the environmental review.
Right.
We need to provide them with 60% plans that shows what we're proposing. If we're
Right.
building a retaining wall, or if we're just gonna put in like an 8-inch diameter pole. Those are two different scenarios.
And from that, they will come back with specific recommendations and
Right.
mitigations that we have to do.
Yes.
From an environmental perspective.
And also say that, on the hazardous tree removal, the triple Cs were spiking out of, or they were camping
Biking out.
at Camp Krem.
Okay,
And they actually were able to develop a trail from Camp Krem to our pipeline trail without plans, without any
Astounding.
guidance. And
Yes,
so
yes.
they're well suited for this kind of
they
work
are, they
that's
are.
outside of the box.
But when was the last pipeline project that they did?
To my knowledge, they assisted with our original
40 years
raw water line
Okay.
construction. I don't know what other pipelines they've
Right,
done.
okay. So if they assisted 40 years ago, do you think we could get any of that crew again?
No,
No, they're all-
Okay.
I'm sure they cycled through.
Right, right.
yes.
And by the way, I did walk the path. It's a very nice path. So, yeah. Thank you to the engineering team for
Yeah.
escorting me through
Okay.
that.
So. Anything further to discuss on this?
No, keep it up. Keep going.
Okay,
So I just have one quick question. On one of the drawings for the 5 Mile pipeline, there's also the Lion Water Plant treatment plant, and it shows where the houses are and where the creeks are. So I was wondering, where exactly was the slide? Was the slide that direction or that
So the
direction?
slide's on the access road at the hairpin turn.
Okay, all right,
Do you see the hairpin turn?
yeah. I see the hairpin
So there's a
turn
creek-
and there's no, and
There's a creek
there's-
just below the hairpin turn,
right.
and then the houses are on the other side of the creek.
Well, they're far away from the hairpin turn. That was why I was questioning it, if you can see that.
so let's have Garrett bring back a
Yeah.
map so,
You can see it on the
So
county
we can all-
GIS too.
show us the rough outline of the slide, where the road is.
And staff would suggest that we proceed with a more economical solution rather than a slope stabilization of
Yeah.
15 or 20
Yeah.
million dollars. Staff is not proposing that.
Right. No, I was just thinking of the liability issue of where, whether it
Agreed.
really would hit the
Right.
homes
And
on
that's
the
why
other
I wanna
side of the
see-
creek.
I want to
and-
see a full
Yeah,
plan.
I'd like a GIS,
Yeah. something that shows
diagram
all
of
of
it.
that. Just
rather than
has that
just this,
somewhere,
but
it's
but
probably
this
not.
raised questions
Yeah,
in my mind.
assembled, yeah.
Yeah. My guess would be it's a low probability that there's gonna be a major issue.
Let's look at a map. Let's do what Bob's suggesting. Let's talk to Hara Kucinich about that.
We gotta go back to the agenda item. I want my question answered about the impact of the catastrophic.
Yep, yep. I do want to bring this back to the next meeting since we haven't moved anywhere on this or made any other recommendation.
But relative to the P-Vine agenda item that we're on, are there any other?
Yeah.
Questions?
I don't have anything else to bring out on that. So. Okay. So, I don't think that you need the committee to say, go get started on engineering plans. Do,
So this was just for review and discussion.
okay. Right. Okay,
And I think we was asked at the last meeting that we.
it was because this is a significant
Yeah,
thing that's in front of
I would say that,
us, in front of the board.
yeah, so for the next budget that we're adopting, we have to decide if we're gonna move on these projects or if we wanna prioritize other projects.
Right. And getting the cost estimate from the CCC for trail reestablishment, I think would help inform next step
Okay.
costs on it. Okay. Then if nothing else, I think we can adjourn.
We have old
Well, hold on.
business.
Future
Oh, that's
agenda
right.
items.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So. But right now, we had proposed to bring the 2021 master plan projects to the May meeting. And then the tank recoatings in the June meeting.
And
and then-
tell us, what's this 2021 master plan? So for the rest of the
So-
committee, so that they understand what the
Yeah.
master plan is and what you want to bring to us.
So the district completed a hydraulic analysis of the entire distribution system and made a hydraulic model of the system. So that was done in the 2021 master plan with Cal Engineering. And they identify over 75 million in projects that we could do to improve the system, everything from fire flow to storage capacity, eliminating pumps, all kinds of different projects that we can do to optimize our system. So that would be a presentation on the 2021 master plan projects.
Garrett, have you all sort of put together what your operating methodology is for projects relative to the categories we talked about early on? Which is, you know, we've got projects that are in association with other agencies, anything dealing with Highway 9 or 236 or the county, what have you.
Right.
We have FEMA project. We have, you know, critical backlog items like tank recoatings that, you know, where the tanks are way past their. Any other critical infrastructure. I think that would help inform how you set priorities for the budgeting process that goes through a different committee. But I think we ought to be sort of establishing where those are in the priority list. I mean, if the county says you got to do something, or the state says you got to do something, we just got to do it, right? We don't have a lot of
Yes.
choice. Right? If we don't act reasonably quickly or show progress on FEMA, we're going to lose money for recovery on it.
I would also add grants to that.
Okay, if we don't do things with grant,
Yeah,
then we're going to lose the grant money.
correct.
So I think we need to have in place a priority structure around how we look at these projects. And the master plan is certainly one of those inputs, right? Because that 75 million in there had some priorities, had some things that we should be doing. It was viewed to be done over a 5 or 7 year period, something like that. That's another input, but I think we need to make sure we don't lose sight of the bigger picture, which is all of the inputs into establishing those priorities.
Okay,
Didn't we do that? I remember you presenting a list of the top 5 or something,
yes,
and then Gantt charts for those.
yes.
All
We
right,
did not establish what the methodology was going to be for selecting what those priorities were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that is the policy related item that we as a committee and as a board need to be addressing. Right? And we have not finished that process. Yes, we have a list of things based on some methodology. I want to establish what that methodology should be.
oh,
I would say right now, the methodology is there's an exhaustive list of incomplete projects. So we're doing our best to try and complete the existing list that we have.
That may not be the right list.
Sure.
That's my point, is that we need to get into where we've established a methodology for doing this. And out of that will come the priorities.
Yeah, it feels like we're in kind of a triage mode right now,
Yeah.
just trying to maintain and deal with all this disaster work that we have.
But that, again, may be the number 2 priority after what does the county and state want us to do?
Okay.
I just want this to be more formalized, because in the past, there's been a lot of, you know, I've been looking at this district and their CIP stuff for over 10 years, like almost 15 years now. There's no rhyme or reason to how things are done. It basically was, well, we pull here, we pull there, we do this. There's been no methodology by which to explain to the community why we're spending money, how we're spending money, why it's important that we spend money in the way that we are. And that's what I want to get to.
Shouldn't the district hierarchy, if you wish, be giving guidance?
You're looking at the hierarchy
No,
right
no,
now,
I'm not. No, I'm not.
or it's the board.
Shouldn't the board be giving guidance to
Mhm.
engineering on what the priority reasoning should be? Which are the
Yeah.
critical things from the district standpoint?
Yeah.
So he can address which ones fit the priority, rather than asking engineering to come up with a methodology
But to
which the
Bob's
board
point,
may or may not like.
yeah, but to Bob's point, this is where it should start. Because we're the ones that are paying for
We're then going to take this
Yes, but
methodology.
we don't know the
We're-
district, the board of directors' priorities.
We're gonna take, many things that go to committees are basically to be dealt with in committee with community input from the three of you in order to make recommendations back to the board. What I'm suggesting here is that we as a committee establish what that in case it's not clear, that we as a committee establish what that methodology is at a policy level, and we take it to the board and say,
right.
either adopt this or adjust it. And that
But
becomes
here's,
what we operate.
but here's the committee's input into those various items. Here's the committee's input,
It's either that or we just ignore the committee and do it at the board
Because-
level. I don't want to do that.
because to Bob's point,
I understand,
the
Okay.
board hasn't done
but do
this.
we, as the public members of the committee,
Yeah,
who are not living with this stuff day to day,
yeah.
do we have the knowledge to make that kind of decision without getting some input down?
I think that that's what Bob's asking Garrett to kind of bring to us. What is at least the staff's rationale? What made you pick that pipeline versus some other pipeline? Or why are we doing this? And some of that did come out in that
Yes, I think
in
it
that
did.
CIP. Some of it came out in that with, well, we're doing this project because we don't have a choice because the state, the county said we have to. Or we're doing this other one because it's been on our list since 2021 and we haven't gotten it.
You know, I'll tell you what, guys, I mean, this is way too complicated for a committee like this to deal with. I'll take a couple, 3 hours and I'll write one on my own, for God's sake. This is not a complicated thing.
I don't think it's.
But it is for those of us who are not living with it.
Yeah.
It's not that it's complicated.
Well, I don't live with it
It's
either.
too much black magic. If we don't have a list of 5 or 8 criteria
But
that
Bob,
need
I
to be reviewed.
disagree. You have been living with it because you've been on the board for,
Well, yeah, but I don't live with it every day,
agreed.
right? I live with it at a policy level. That's what I want to get to.
Yeah.
And if this committee does not want to take that on, that's great.
Um,
Then we can deal with it in a different way.
let's talk about it as part of this master plan list.
Sure.
Yeah, and the next,
Sure.
I think that this is where these discussions should begin.
Okay,
Because this is a less formal setting than the board meetings. This gives the staff to bounce ideas off of 2 board members, which are not a quorum. Having a 3rd board member in here makes the discussion a lot more difficult because then we're attempting to lobby. This is a less formal setting. And if nothing else, let's Bob and I air out what we think our opinions are on it. To have staff here, 2 board members, along with having then public input into it.
But we need some, at least I feel, we need some guidance as to what the district criteria would be for us to be able to review
Yeah.
that, rather than coming in on a roughly once a month thing with a
Mhm.
short review
Yeah.
and trying to prejudge the
Let's,
decisions that are being made.
I,
That's
I,
my feeling.
yeah, well, I think that's one of the things we asked the last time, was for you to come in and have, the source of the funding, the gravity or the immediate need or later term need or whatever. And I think we talked about that
We did.
and so I think in a sense, those are the criteria. And then we can figure out which is the priority of those criteria.
So we started the discussion at a previous meeting when we were reviewing that, the
Capital Improvement Program priority project.
yeah, the priority projects.
Right.
And we started it then. But we should have another look at that. Let's look at it in light of the sort of the high level discussion overview of what this master plan is, the hydraulic system, and how that informs why some of the items that are on the CIP list are there. But the master plan doesn't go through and give any of what Bob is asking about some type of a criteria for all of what's on there, let alone, the myriad of other things that aren't part of the master plan, that are on the CIP. So it's kind of an iterative process. We started the discussion about that CIP list, and it helped inform me also. So I'd like to come back to that along with the master plan.
Okay, so for the next meeting, we're gonna bring back the Lion Access Road slide.
Right.
We're gonna bring back the Peavine raw water pipeline.
No, you don't
I
need
think
to bring
they-
that back.
Yeah. I
No,
don't see that
The
I don't see that you're gonna have anything on the Peavine.
okay, so
Okay.
we'll bring back Lion Access.
Right.
And then we'll bring back project priority, but as a policy.
Yes.
And we'll also bring the 2021 master plan.
No,
I mean, those are kind of the same.
So I'm, again, I'm
applying it to
sensing
the-
here that Ken's having, Ken, you're having some difficulties here. I get that. So why don't I work with Garrett on assembling a draft policy?
Okay, project priority policy.
Yeah.
Lion Access Road slide. Those are the two topics.
Yeah.
Okay,
Would
Are
that work?
are you good with getting
Sure.
input?
yeah,
Of
course.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm fine
'cause
with that,
I
yeah.
just kind of want to cut through the Gordian knot.
To try to give some structure to this before they come into the meeting.
for instance,
Yeah.
we could have a project that benefits a large number of customers.
We will
Right.
talk
Right.
about some specifics.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then if you have another project that only helps like 2 customers, you might want to do the one that helps a lot of customers
Right.
rather than the one that only helps 2.
You're talking priorities here, huh?
Okay,
Right.
but we're gonna put together something that's
So-
going to structure this in a formal policy.
Yeah.
So could we get the results of that first pass before we come to the meeting? So we
Yes.
have a chance to
Yes.
even comment on it before we come to the meeting.
It would be part of
The agenda.
It'll be on the agenda.
and
The
I
agenda.
think that same list were the ones that you generated, the Gantt chart, I think you generated them, right? The Gantt charts? All right. For that same list, I believe.
Yeah.
And if those charts could just be updated, and again, if we could see them before the meeting, that would give us a better feel for whether a project is stalled, why, maybe out of our control, or has moved forward fast enough that maybe it can drop to a lower priority level because it doesn't need the attention, et cetera.
All right.
I don't know if I understand that.
So
but-
we're gonna bring a project priority policy and you want to bring back the capital improvement program priority projects?
There's only 5 of them. Some of them, I think, are the
Was-
same ones we've talked about.
Yeah.
Let's,
5 or 6, I think. Was it-
There's the whole master plan.
No,
And
no,
then there
I'm
was
talking
the
about the ones that
CIP ones.
You had a separate list of a very limited number of these were the critical ones.
Yeah.
All right, I was looking for it. I didn't think I printed it out. And then I believe it's the same list that you generated the Gantt charts on. Same projects.
So the top 5 projects with Gantt charts.
And all I'm saying is if there've been changes to any of those improvements, things have moved forward or whatever. If we get that information, that's your take, you engineering's take on what were the critical items, the top ones, not the whole list, just the top ones. And that's where we want to start. And then at the same time, what's being looked for is, what were the criteria for choosing those? What was your methodology? All right, and I think that's what's being asked for,
No.
but you need both.
It's,
I-
We don't, we don't.
I don't
define
understand, the
methodology.
Gantt charts are about the,
Which ones were being chosen?
okay, I mean, my understanding is the Gantt charts reflect the project timeline of how long it takes to complete. But the prioritization is when do we even start these projects?
Yeah, I
I
didn't
think it's
print
kind of
out
divorced
all
from how
those
long.
charts. And I don't know that I have them on my laptop, so
Uh-huh.
I work with two computers, so I'm not that smart.
so I think we've talked at length about future agenda item. I don't see that there was anything from informational material we need to discuss here. Since it's well past
I
4,
think we just did it, actually.
yeah, well past 4, I want to propose that we adjourn.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Thanks for your
Good
time,
meeting.
folks.
We got,
Good.
I'll stay here.